Welcome to the Love Story with Lisa channel. Today, we're bringing you a brand new story. My father abandoned my mother to marry another woman, so I followed my mother and became a hairdressing maid. We chose to live for ourselves. Synopsis: the new woman entering our home demanded that my father cast aside his wife. My mother had grown older, her beauty had faded. Father did not hesitate. I succeeded in taking mother away. We became hairdressing maids. Mother said my fate was bitter. I said it was not, because at last, we were living for ourselves. End of synopsis. Now, please listen to the story. I knelt for 3 days outside Father's study, begging him not to discard mother for the fleeting novelty before his eyes. In the past, when Father wished to pass the imperial examinations and win an official post, Mother went from house to house working as a hairdresser. With a fine-toothed comb and steady hands, she earned coin after coin, tuition fees, travel expenses, every last copper scraped together for him. Now that he had secured a mere 9th-rank official title, insignificant as a speck of dust, he strutted about the county like a conquering hero. His heart was no longer upright. He had set his sights on the third daughter of the Liu family, Lillian Liu. They had met by chance at a temple fair. One glance at her beauty, and greed stirred in his heart. Shamelessly, he went to propose marriage. Mother had tried to stop him. The third young lady of the Liu family is only 1 year older than our own daughter. How can you ruin another girl's life like this? Father slapped her so hard her face turned to the side. Inside the room, he displayed the authority of the so-called head of the household. What would a shrew like you understand? Which official nowadays does not keep multiple wives and concubines? Stop meddling in my affairs. Even Master Liu privately found Father's appearance unrefined and his bearing distasteful. So he set a condition: if my daughter is to marry into your household, she will only enter as the principal wife. Separated by a thin door, Mother was helping me comb my hair when Father repeated those words. I had known Edmund Lin, third young Master Lin, the youngest son of Deputy Magistrate Lin, since childhood. Mother had even planned to arrange a match between us. Father's voice came from outside, calculating, cold: give her half a tael of silver and send her out to live elsewhere. Though I discard her, I will provide food and clothing for the rest of her life. She is not to ask for anything more. From the sound of it, he was smoking his pipe, drawing on it again and again to suppress his irritation. Mother's hands slowed as she combed my hair. In the dim bronze mirror, I could not clearly see her reflection. Mother. I turned my head to look at her. She pressed my head gently back into place. Tuesday me, Clara, don't move. I haven't finished placing the hairpin. Her voice was soft, steady, but I could hear the sobbing beneath it. Hearing the movement inside, Father shouted loudly, "What are you saying in there?" Back in our hometown, the neighbors all said Mother was fierce. In those early years, Father had traveled hundreds of miles away to study, leaving Mother alone with me, a nursing infant in her arms. A young bride with a baby. There was no other man in the household. Inevitably, lecherous men came knocking under the guise of concern, hoping to worm their way into her bed. Mother sharpened her tongue as one sharpens a blade, and then, one night, she truly blinded a scoundrel who had climbed over our wall under cover of darkness. At dawn the next morning, she carried me in her arms and stood outside that man's front gate, cursing at the top of her lungs. "You conscienceless beast! You would not even spare a widow and her child. Your household has elders and children alike. Have you no thought of virtue for their sake?" A crowd gathered to watch. Mother calmly found a large stone and sat down. "If you dare step out this door today, I'll cut off what's between your legs." She pulled out the scissors. On the sharp tip, impaled grotesquely, was a bloodied eyeball. I was too young then to feel fear. Seeing Mother dominate the scene, I only felt awe. Under the blazing summer sun, she held me in her arms and kept watch from morning until night. The steamed buns and water she had brought were all fed to me. Auntie Jo came to mediate, warning that I might not endure the long hours under the sun and urging Mother to go home. Mother lowered her head and asked softly, "Clara, are you hot?" I shook my head and raised my small hands to shade her brows. If Clara doesn't feel the sun, then Mother doesn't feel it either. And so she held me there, blocking the villain's doorway for an entire day and night. From that moment on, no one dared bully us again. Because of that, we held our ground until the day Father returned. Yet when he did return, Mother began to sigh more often. Waking before dawn and working late into the night as a hairdresser had never once made her frown. But the man who had shared her pillow for years made her increasingly silent. At last, Father spoke directly to me. As he passed, he flung his sleeve impatiently and scolded, "If your mother had borne me a son, would we have come to this?" I could not hold back. My fists clenched tight. When Mother was pregnant with me, he had left for years at a time. Upon receiving news that she had given birth to a daughter, he had not returned even once to look at me. By the time he finally came back, Mother was older. Her body had been worn down. She could no longer bear him another child. Perhaps Father had begun plotting all this from the very moment the physician declared that Mother could no longer conceive. Sooner or later, Father would have taken concubines anyway, not just one, perhaps 2 or 3, and he would not have stopped until one of them bore him a son. The worst possibility had now come true. He did not merely want a concubine. He wanted to replace his wife entirely. Mother was right. He was about to ruin Lillian Lou's life. My knees had long since gone numb from kneeling. I endured the stabbing pain, struggled upright, and looked at him. He was my biological father, and yet, to me, he had always been a stranger. From the time I was born and old enough to understand the world, I scarcely even knew what he looked like. When he finally returned home in glory after passing the examinations, I felt no pride at all. We moved from a small courtyard into a grand residence. Instead of feeling honored, I felt as though Mother and I were merely living under someone else's roof, because now, our food and clothing no longer depended on Mother's hands. They depended entirely on Father's salary, and that meant, whatever he wanted, we had no right to refuse. I was of marriageable age now. Among the young men in the county, who would not value me. Any family of decent standing would consider me a suitable match. Father knew that, yet he still intended to drive Mother away. So it was not merely that he repaid her devotion with betrayal. He did not even care for the bond between father and daughter. In that instant, my heart cleared. There was no point begging for pity. Even if I knelt until my legs were ruined, he would not yield. I only asked him one question, "Father, are you determined to cast off your wife and bring the third young lady of the Lou family into our home?" He struck my head viciously. "Stop talking back. I'll drive you out with your mother as well. If you don't become a maid, you'll become a prostitute. Let's see how you survive." He had already stepped inside, but as if still unsatisfied, he came back out and kicked my thigh, already throbbing from kneeling. "When Miss Lou enters this house, you will serve her properly. If you dare, like your mother, to utter one word of nonsense before her, I will sell you off immediately." The door slammed shut with a violent crash. Mother had gone out to buy food. She must have heard his last words upon returning. Crying, she rushed over to help me up, shouting toward the house, "Is it not enough that you've driven me away? Clara is your own flesh and blood. Do not commit such madness and harm your own child. From behind the closed door, Father's voice came cold and cutting. The moment you step out of this house, if you happen to bear a child afterward, who would know whether it's mine or not? Mother's face went white. She fainted on the spot. I carried her back into the room. Outside, rain poured down as though the heavens themselves had broken open. Inside me, a blaze raged hotter than fire. I rushed out to find a physician. It was the darkest road I had ever walked. The rain washed away the last of my hope for a complete family. I pounded on the door of the medical shop. But when the physician saw I had no carriage to escort him, he shook his head. The rain is too heavy. My medicine chest will be ruined. I cannot go. I collapsed to the ground, clutching the doorframe, sobbing so hard that not a single full sentence could leave my mouth. Tears and rainwater mingled on my face. As we struggled, thunder split the sky, and then, from somewhere not far away, a familiar voice called out, "Is that Clara?" My whole body trembled as I turned. Edmund Lynn, third young Master Lynn, the son of Deputy Magistrate Lynn, was sitting inside a carriage. Peering toward me, "It is me." "Edmund, wait." I seized the physician's sleeve desperately. There's a carriage now." Soaked to the bone, covered in mud, I clambered into Edmund's carriage. I did not dare lift my eyes to his refined, handsome face, nor to the composed dignity that seemed to cling to him even in the storm. "Clara, are you all right?" he asked. I bit down hard, forcing my tears back. My fingernails dug into my palm beneath my sleeve. "I'm fine." He saw through me at once. "Drive faster," he ordered the coachman. "There is urgent business at her home." In these past days, I should have met him properly dressed, adorned with care, to discuss our betrothal. Fate had a cruel sense of humor. When we were only one step away from becoming husband and wife, he instead saw me at my most wretched. Thanks to Father, my hardship had only just begun. That night, I cared for Mother. Edmund stayed by my side, helping quietly. Since childhood, he had always been this gentle. His nature was kind and mild. Near midnight, Mother stirred awake for only a brief moment. When she saw Edmund standing behind me, tears filled her eyes at once. She looked at me with guilt, her voice hoarse, her face drawn and pale. "Clara, Mother has burdened you." That single sentence shattered the dryness in my eyes. I crouched before her bed, wrapping my arms around her shoulders, shaking my head through sobs. "Mother, don't say that. Don't." Perhaps Edmund had heard rumors of what had happened. He crouched down beside me. "Madame Yuan, Clara, please do not worry." He removed the sachet hanging from his waist and showed it to Mother. It was the one I had embroidered for him. Edmund smiled gently. "Since childhood, there has been only one person I have cherished. I will not abandon her easily." Only then did Mother close her eyes. Before long, she fell asleep. Before dawn, beneath the dim curtain of rain. I walked Edmund to the gates. He lifted the umbrella over my head, letting half his own body be drenched. With a smile, he said lightly, "This rain came at the perfect time. The finest plots of wheat in my estate have been saved." I listened to him. After a moment's thought, I asked, "Does your estate need more tenant farmers?" Edmund understood what I meant. He frowned slightly. "Is your father truly that heartless? He would even cast aside his own daughter?" My fingers tightened around the umbrella handle. I glanced toward the quarters where Yuan Shirdo was staying. He must have known Mother had fainted. When I went to fetch the physician, I had made such a commotion, yet from beginning to end, He had not asked a single question, nor spared mother a single glance. He had not even stepped across the threshold of her bedchamber. I bit down hard on my lower lip. Father may discard his wife, I said quietly, but I will never discard my mother. The moment he drives her out, I will follow. So now, I must find a way for us to live. Edmund stepped closer. The warmth of his breath brushed against me, and in that cold, rain-soaked night, the air seemed to soften. I had always felt that there was light in his eyes. Since childhood, it had been so. Whenever he looked at me intently, I felt as though the stars themselves were turning in the heavens. For a long moment, his beautiful phoenix eyes flickered as though he were wrestling with something inside. Seeing me standing at the wind's edge, shivering, he moved to shield me from the gusts. Then he said, in a solemn voice, "Marry me, Clara. I will bring you and Madame Yuan with me. The three of us will live in the same courtyard. I will care for her until the end of her days." I looked up at him. In that instant, my heart softened completely. I had always wanted to marry him, but to me, that wish had often felt like nothing more than a distant dream. When we were little, it had begun with a single glance by the doorway of the private school. That fleeting moment had engraved his handsome face into my memory. Back then, I had been curious. I once asked the tutor why those boys were allowed to study while I was not. The tutor chose his words carefully. "You have not paid the enrollment gift. Naturally, you cannot study." I refused to accept that. I went home, stole a piece of dried meat, and ran back to the tutor, asking to be admitted. The tutor held the dried meat and could not help laughing. Embarrassed, the tutor returned the dried meat and asked me to leave. I lowered my head and walked away, miserable, the sound of laughter echoing behind me. Then, footsteps followed. He stopped behind me, not touching me, but standing properly with his hands clasped in greeting. "Miss, please wait." We were both very young then, and the way he spoke made him sound like a little old scholar. Timidly, I turned around. The boy relaxed his expression and revealed a gentle, friendly smile. "I am the third son of the Lin family in town. My name is Edmund Lin." Later, I would call him Third Young Master Lin, Edmund, because of that first greeting. That day, he asked me, "If you truly wish to learn to write, you may come here after lessons end. I can teach you." I studied his star-bright eyes carefully, then nodded with all my strength. He never asked me why I wanted to learn. He never asked what benefit it would bring me. He never once suggested that a girl learning letters was improper, nor did he think that a poor commoner girl like me was unworthy of education. Quickly, I stuffed the piece of dried meat into his arms. He burst into laughter. Even as a child, Edmund was perceptive. With a single glance, he could see into another's heart. He knew that piece of dried meat had not come easily to me, so he returned it. Instead, he chose something simpler as my enrollment gift. "Do you know how to embroider a purse? Or braid a cord?" he asked, scratching his head as though thinking very seriously. "Whatever small thing you can make, just make it for me. I will certainly teach you to write with all my heart." I gave him a sachet I had sewn myself. He wore it at his waist for more than 10 years. In that distant past, Edmund Lin had been like the first light of dawn, sweeping away the humiliation and despair inside me. I lifted my head and said to him, "My name is Clara Yuan." "Then call me Clara," I added softly. He blinked in surprise. "You are the daughter of the hairdresser in the south of the city?" I nodded slowly. In this county, when people mentioned my mother, most did so with ridicule and ill intent. Yet Edmund only looked astonished for a moment before admiration filled his gaze. "I have heard Madame Yuan is neither arrogant nor self-abasing, but a woman of great dignity." No wonder you wish to study. His expression was so sincere that even the drifting clouds behind him seemed to frame a memory I would never forget. Edmund was good, so good that every time I stood before him, I felt the smallness of my own hopes, and so now, when he asked me to marry him, though my heart trembled, it also ached. If one lives dependent under one roof, moving to another roof is still dependence. Mother and I would only be walking into another dead end. Was not father the same? In the beginning, he too had once been a bright young scholar, just like Edmund. He had once loved mother dearly. He had once cherished her, so I kept my head lowered and stepped back, maintaining a proper distance. It's late, third young Master Lin. You should return now. I handed him the umbrella. It had always been his to begin with. Seeing the worry lingering between his brows, I smiled gently. When the rain clears, I will come find you. These past few days I've been reading, and there are many passages I cannot quite understand. I'll still need your guidance. Only then did he finally feel at ease enough to get back into the carriage and depart under my steady gaze. The night wind swept swiftly across the road. Soon I could no longer see him, only hear the steady clatter of hooves and the creak of wheels rolling through puddles. When even those sounds faded into silence, the smile slipped from my lips. In the blink of an eye, the air around me turned cold. It was the first nights of summer, yet for some reason the chill bit deep into my bones. I had just turned around when a shadow suddenly appeared before me. I jumped in fright. Looking closer, I realized it was Yuan Shirda. His voice was icy. That was the deputy magistrate Lin's household, wasn't it? You should have agreed just now. He could give you everything you could never earn in your lifetime. He stepped forward, lecturing me the same way he had lectured mother all these years. A woman shouldn't argue so much. You'll only make your husband resent you, understand? At home, obey your father. Once married, obey your husband. When your husband dies, obey your son. That is the proper way of the world. I could not help letting out a cold laugh. Are you truly thinking of my future? Or are you scheming to marry me into the Lin family so you can become in-laws with the deputy magistrate? His elder brother is the prefect himself. Don't think I don't know what you're calculating. Father's breathing grew ragged with anger as he lunged at me. I had already expected he might raise his hand, so I dodged in time. I watched, unmoving, as he slipped on the muddy ground. His head struck hard against the gate hinge. I made no move to help him up. Folding my arms, I said calmly, "Tomorrow I will move out with mother. If you wish to marry Lillian Lu in peace, then stop causing trouble." Seeing the veins bulge on his forehead only made me more defiant. I lowered my gaze and stared at him. Otherwise, after your wedding, I will stand outside this gate every single day and shout that the master of this house not only lusts after a girl young enough to be his daughter, but also forces his own flesh and blood into servitude, or worse. Let's see how much face you have left in this county. Whether he had truly knocked himself senseless or had been driven speechless by fury, he lay sprawled on the ground, unable to utter a word. Serves you right. I spat lightly and turned away, returning inside to care for mother. Perhaps father feared I would truly go mad. By the time dawn broke and I had finished packing our belongings, he was nowhere to be seen. The main gate stood open. He had left without a single word, eager, no doubt, for mother and me to remove ourselves from his path. Mother asked me, "We have no money right now. What will we do?" I looked into the distance. "Mother, let's return to the small house where it was only the two of us, relying on each other." I loaded our bundles onto a mule cart, helped her sit steady, and said, "In those years, how did we survive? We'll live the same way again." Back then, Without father, we lived very well. Didn't we? All these years, listening to father preach the rules meant for women. I had obediently shaped myself into a well-mannered daughter at his side. I had waited for the day I might be married into some suitable household of equal standing. After marriage, perhaps I would have treated my husband just as mother had treated father. I would have given up the skill that once fed our family. I would have folded the rest of my life into the narrow courtyard before a husband's house, bending and yielding, year after year, for nothing more than the money that bought our daily rice. The small house we returned to had been locked for so long that the rusted latch fell apart at a single knock. It took me 4 full days to clean it from top to bottom, though nothing there could compare to father's residence in material comfort. Mother and I felt something far more precious, peace, to live without relying on anyone else. After caring for mother for half a month, our savings had nearly run dry. Edmund insisted on giving me money, but each time I refused firmly. Once, he grew irritated and accused me of treating him like an outsider. It was the first time I had ever seen him angry, yet even then, I resolutely returned the purse to him. "Edmund," I said softly, "if you truly wish to help me, then inquire whether any households need a hairdressing maid. It need not be within this county, nearby towns or even Moon City would do." His expression gradually eased. I reached out and lightly caught his sleeve. "Give a person a fish, and you feed them for a day. Teach them how to fish, and you feed them for a lifetime. You were the one who taught me that. Tell me, was that reasoning wrong?" He looked at me intently. He seemed ready to argue, but in the end he only sighed helplessly. I teased him, "Do you regret teaching me to read and write now?" Edmund shook his head. "I only hope that the characters I taught you will serve you well in life." He leaned closer, smiling. "Today you are so stubborn. It seems you've truly learned every word by heart. As your teacher, I am quite pleased." His smiling eyes were far too radiant. I did not dare meet them directly. When my cheeks felt as though they were about to burst into flames, I quickly turned around and went back to my room, forcing myself to calm down. I listened carefully to the sound of Edmund Lynn ladling water outside. If I refused to take his money, he would help me with whatever he could within his means. At that moment, I truly made up my mind. "Mother, teach me again how to dress a bride's hair. I can't rely on you to support me for the rest of my life." My gaze drifted to the stack of books by my bedside. Suddenly, a flash of inspiration struck me. I had thought of a very good idea. After the autumn harvest, there were always many weddings. Mother charged a modest fee, so quite a lot of families invited her to style the bride's hair. At first, I could only follow her around and assist. Later, once she had taught me enough, I was able to do the work myself. I told the young girls from my hometown that I didn't need payment for now. I only wanted to practice. Because of that, they were more than happy to come to me to have their hair done. Gradually, I was able to handle everything on my own. Moreover, I could read and write. When I had spare time, I would go out and help people write letters home. The money was meager, barely worth mentioning, but saved little by little, it was enough to get by. On the day Father married Lily and Lou, I happened to be scheduled to visit a family in the city to help the old madam there style her hair. Seeing how deft my hands were, the old madam rewarded me with a little extra silver. I felt somewhat embarrassed. Glancing at her young granddaughter playing in the courtyard, I called the little girl over and styled her hair into the shape of a festive New Year illustration. The old madam praised me warmly. "Leave your address and go home to wait. I'll recommend you to others." I thanked her profusely before hiring a carriage back home. Because of the delay of several hours, it was already pitch dark by the time I entered the county. Normally, after sunset, Most households shut their doors and rested in peace. Yet today, the closer I got to my home, the louder and more chaotic the voices became. From a distance, Noah, Edmund's young attendant, spotted me and hurried over. "Miss Yuan, hide first," he urged. Without another word, he pulled me in the opposite direction. I stopped abruptly. "What happened?" Noah scratched his head. "Wasn't today the day your father was to bring Lillian Lu into the house? Who would have thought Miss Lu ran off with someone else? Your father is convinced Madame Yuan played tricks. He's making a scene right now." Making a scene? The moment I heard that, hot blood surged through me. I rolled up my sleeves and marched home. Noah tried to stop me, but he couldn't. The instant I pushed through the crowd, I saw father stumble and fall right in front of me. I immediately stepped aside and let him collapse into the dust, dirt covering his entire body. "You shrewish woman." At once, I saw Edmund Lin stepping back after speaking gently, saying, "Auntie Zhou, whatever the matter, it's best to speak reasonably. If you lay hands on someone today, others may use it as an excuse to drag you into the magistrate's office. Then what will Clara Yuan do?" The moment Mother heard my name, she halted. I stepped forward and saw a pair of sharp scissors clutched in her hand. In that instant, it was as if I saw the fearless woman from years ago return, the woman who feared neither heaven nor earth. If Mother had to swallow her humiliation before this unfaithful man, then I truly would not know what to do. I walked over quietly and took the scissors from her hand. Father was crawling and rolling on the ground, shouting at me, "Your mother's gone mad. Watch her carefully." I wrapped my arms around Mother and signaled to Noah with my eyes, urging him to quickly remove Father from here. If this continued, someone might truly lose their life. No matter what, he was not worth Mother dirtying her hands. Auntie Zhou, who had once advised Mother years ago, was also in the crowd. At this moment, she secretly raised a thumb and said, "Clara, your mother was absolutely right this time." That kick to your father's chest, I watched it with such satisfaction. Mother and I couldn't help but laugh. After that, I helped her sit down in the courtyard and gently stroked her back to soothe her anger. "Mother, don't be angry. A man like that isn't worth your temper." Mother understood, yet she still let out a soft sigh. Instead, she said, "The wheat was just harvested. Third young Master Lin gave us some. This afternoon I ground it into flour and made cakes for you. Go eat." I hugged her. I know Mother loves me most in this world. Then you should care for Edmund a little more too. After seeing Father off, Edmund strode into our courtyard. He was always impeccably dressed, at every moment refined and courteous. Mother smiled in welcome. "Clara, bring the cakes. Let's eat together." Fortunately, third young Master Lin arrived in time today. Otherwise, who knows what your father might have done to you. I looked at Edmund with gratitude. He still wore that gentle smile, standing beneath the starlit sky like clouds cradling a bright moon. He came forward to help me carry the cakes. Suddenly, I felt a trace of reluctance. I cherished him, and at the same time, I felt I was wasting him. When he lowered his head, I asked softly, "Seeing me like this, your parents must have tried very hard to dissuade you, haven't they?" Edmund's body stiffened. He didn't need to say anything. I already understood. He was a young master from an outstanding family background. I was only a daughter cast out by my own father. His parents valued their son deeply, had even entrusted him with managing all their farmland. Naturally, they would not want him to marry someone like me. even if they compromised and spoke plainly. At most they would allow me to become a concubine. But Edmund did not want that. From beginning to end, he said he wanted one life, one world, just one pair. He promised he would marry me as his wife, his only madam, so he could only circle around the matter, speaking at length, offering countless gentle words to reassure me. Yet the gentler he was, the heavier my heart became, sorrow pressing down. Dull and aching, thanks to the old madam's recommendation, on the first day of autumn the following year, I received a new commission, to dress the hair of the prefect's daughter, who was soon to be married. I lifted the beaded curtain. With just one glance into the carved bronze mirror, I couldn't hold back my admiration. Miss Zheng, you are truly beautiful. Catherine Zheng laughed at my frankness, then shyly lowered her head. She was very cooperative. Though the process of washing, combing, and arranging the bridal coiffure was long, she sat quietly the entire time, watching me through the bronze mirror. Compared to when I had first begun learning the craft, my hands were now swift and assured. By the time I finished, the auspicious hour had yet to arrive. When Catherine saw me gather my tools, preparing to leave, she spoke up and asked me to stay. She wished to offer me a cup of celebratory wine. I accepted the cup. Standing, I drank it in one breath and offered a few words of blessing. Immediately, she instructed a maid to reward me with silver. As I was politely declining, she suddenly asked, "Miss Yuan, we seem to be about the same age, are we not?" I answered carefully. "I am 17 this year, only a few months younger than you, Mississippi." She nodded, then continued, "Your skills are so proficient. You must have been working outside the home for quite some time, yes?" I replied honestly, "My mother's health is poor. Treating her illness requires a great deal of money. Besides, I wish to stand on my own feet. That is why I began working." To my surprise, I caught a trace of envy in the eyes of such a sheltered young lady. Perhaps she envied that, at my age, I had already traveled here and there, met many people, experienced many things. At the time, I did not fully understand why she envied me. Not until she said softly, "You are not like me. At home, I obey my father. After marriage, I obey my husband. Even my future husband was chosen by father, a man I have never once met." Her beautiful face drooped. In a fleeting instant, it seemed to wither. She reminded me of mother during those bitter years, enduring humiliation in silence. I comforted her gently. "After all, today is your joyful day." Catherine gathered her strength and asked, "Are you married, Miss Yuan? Or is there already someone in your heart?" I shook my head, then nodded, "I am not married. But there is someone I cherish." The auspicious hour arrived, separated by a deep red bridal veil. Catherine spoke her final words before stepping out. "Miss Yuan, you are proud and capable. In the future, you will surely marry the one you love." I watched her figure leave the residence, festivity soaring into the sky, yet in my heart, there lingered a faint melancholy, both for her, and for myself. The following month, I was to enter the Lin residence. Edmund Lin's second sister was about to be married. Madame Lin had specially sent someone to invite me to arrange her bridal hair. At first, Edmund tried to help me refuse, but I gently pushed him aside and accepted the deposit, agreeing to take on the work. He was worried that once his parents saw me, they would make things difficult. I laughed and asked him, "If your parents were capable of raising someone as kind as you, I believe they would not do anything cruel." Edmund fell silent, then nodded. I did not wish to burden him further. So I smiled lightly and added, "Besides, look, your mother gave a larger deposit than anyone else." That shows she won't make things hard for me. Mid-autumn nights were often veiled in drifting clouds. Wherever the wind swept, it carried a biting chill. He said nothing more. Instead, he removed his cloak and draped it over my shoulders. His eyes that night were resolute. "Clara," he said, "I know what I must do." After that, he buried himself even deeper in endless work. Just like me, he wanted to save money. He wanted independence. He was waiting until he could buy a small courtyard of his own, waiting until he had the means to live separately, waiting until he could truly provide for Mother and me. Only then would he be able to persuade his parents. At times, I was afraid of the hope he sowed within me. With my current circumstances, I could only casually marry some farmer or butcher. A life with few peaceful days, yet marriage was inevitable. Still, I had always longed to form a pair with the one I loved. If that could be so, how wonderful it would be. No matter what the future might hold, I wanted to stake everything on this final sliver of hope, not asking for a life without regret, only wishing to be true to my own heart. At last, the day arrived for me to style the hair of the Lynn family's second Mississippi. I chose to wear simple, clean clothing. Earlier, Mother had tried to give me many pieces of jewelry, pieces she herself had never dared to wear. She wanted her daughter to appear dignified in another household, so that the Lynn family would not look down on me. I shook my head. I'm going there to work. Wearing those would only get in the way. As long as I do my job well, they won't dare to belittle me. Still uneasy, Mother chased after the ox cart for quite a distance. In the end, I had to jump down and steady her. She forced a smile and grasped my hands tightly. Her eyes were filled with worry. "Clara, don't let yourself suffer, no matter what. You mustn't, do you hear? Your mother can still work. If they don't want you, then come home. Mother will raise you forever. You will always be Mother's treasure." Mother. My nose stung. I forced the tears back down. Clara knows I am Mother's treasure. I will never let anyone trample me like roadside grass. I patted the back of her hand, then led her next door to find Auntie Jo. Seeing the sky darkening, on the verge of rain, I advised the two of them to stay indoors and busy themselves with embroidery and sewing. "Mother, wait for me to come back. We'll steam buns together." I smiled as I helped her inside, then climbed onto the cart and headed toward the Lynn residence. From afar, I saw Edmund Lynn standing at the corner of the street, waiting. The moment he spotted my small cart, he strode forward and took the reins, helping me lead the donkey. With a smile, he said, "Winter is almost here. It's still early, yet the sky is already so overcast." I lifted my case of tools onto my shoulder and returned his smile gently. Dressing a bride is urgent work. If I delay the auspicious hour, even 1,000 apologies would not suffice. Edmund secured the cart for me, while I entered the rear courtyard ahead of him. A maid lifted the curtain. The instant I raised my head, I saw Madame Lynn. She sat at the head of the room. The chamber was filled with women and young ladies, all carefully observing and assessing me. Calmly, I performed a respectful greeting. "Greetings, honored madams and young ladies. I am Clara Yuan. Today I have come to arrange the hair of second Miss Lynn." Madame Lynn opened her mouth and spoke with deliberate authority. To the maid guarding the door, "This is a room of women. Let the men assist outside. None are to enter and cause disturbance." I knew those words were meant to keep Edmund outside, to prevent him from stepping in to shield me. But what did it matter? I did not need to hide behind him. He might help me through this moment, but I could not rely on him for a lifetime. Unhurried, I walked through the crowd and stood behind Eleanor Lynn, beginning to comb and smooth her hair neatly into place. As I worked, occasional coughs sounded in the room, yet no one engaged in conversation. I focused entirely on the bride. I did not feel the slightest discomfort. Only when I was nearly finished did Madame Lin finally speak. "I've heard Miss Yuan's skills are both swift and refined. Today, I see it with my own eyes." I smiled faintly. If I intend to earn my living by this craft, I must naturally hone my skills well. Otherwise, I would be unworthy of Madame's praise. "How eloquent you are." Madame Lin took a sip of tea and sighed. "My third son has been away for 2 months now. Not once has he returned home to see me." I cast a discreet glance at her. Her eyes had never left me, thanks to Miss Yuan's appearance. She continued meaningfully, "The moment you arrived, my son followed after. Today, Edmund had returned, of course, because his second sister was to be married. At last, I finished my work." Kneeling slightly before Eleanor Lynn, I carefully inspected the finer details. "As for 2 months ago," I added evenly, "that was during the autumn harvest." There was much to be done. Considering how well this household has raised its children, it is only natural that third young Master Lin would work tirelessly at the estate, so busy he scarcely had time even to return home. A soft laugh burst from Eleanor's lips, cutting across my words and sparing me from having to say more in response to Madame Lin. Madame Lin turned to her. "What are you laughing at?" Eleanor pointed at me, smiling. "She is quick-witted and sharp-tongued. This young lady reminds me so much of Mother in her youth." Startled, I turned to look at Madame Lin. At that very moment, she lowered her gaze toward me as well. Our eyes met. Without planning to, we both smiled. Eleanor Lin had an oval face, round eyes, and a full nose. She looked gentle by nature. Kindness seemed to grow from her features. Even her manner of speaking was warm and considerate. She clearly meant to help Edmund and me. "Miss Yuan," she asked, "is there someone in your heart?" Catherine Zheng had once asked me the same question. As before, I nodded honestly. I simply did not speak Edmund's name aloud. The room was full of people. They all already knew. I was like meat on the chopping block, and they were the knife and board. Whatever I said would make little difference. Eleanor asked again, "Then do you wish to marry the one you love?" Seeing my hesitation, Madame Lin spoke first. "In this world, how many people do not wish to be with the one they love? Second girl, have you not remained unmarried all these years because you were waiting for someone in your heart?" Eleanor nodded. "Mother is right. If Mother could fulfill my wish, then surely Mother could fulfill Hai Tin's as well, could you not?" Madame Lin pressed her lips together and did not answer. Eleanor turned back to me. "Then what does Miss Yuan wish?" "Of course I wish to marry the one I love." I secured a silver hairpin, one I had crafted myself, into Eleanor's hair. "But my life is not good at present. I do not wish to become his burden. I have promised my mother that I will not let myself suffer." I rose to my feet and turned to face Madame Lin directly. "My circumstances are not good now. That does not mean they will always remain so. When I have saved enough money to cure my mother's illness, I intend to open a school. Only then will I consider whom to marry." Only at this moment did Madame Lin look at me differently. The wariness in her gaze softened, replaced by a trace of admiration. Yet I understood clearly, this was only the beginning. When I stepped out of Eleanor's chamber, Edmund was still standing guard at the entrance of the courtyard. I noticed at once that his hands were stiff with cold. His face was pale with alarm as he hurried over. "Were you mistreated?" Edmund asked anxiously. I curved my lips into a smile. Before I could answer, a young maid rushed out from inside the room. Miss Yuan, please wait. Our madam invites you to stay for the wedding wine. I barely had time to react. Edmund, on the other hand, let out a soft, obedient ah. Third young master, I teased with a smile. You've read so many classics. How can you still be so slow-witted today? I pushed my tool case into his arms. Right now, I am a guest invited by Madame Lin. I'll trouble third young master to receive me properly. He thought it over carefully. At last, the tension eased from his handsome face. Smiling a little foolishly, he performed a polite gesture and led me toward the banquet. This way, Miss Yuan. My mother is still waiting. Mother was alone at home, so that day I only stayed a short while before taking my leave. Before I left, the maid attending Madame Lin came to find me. She slipped a little extra money into my pouch, saying Madame admired my skill and wished to reward me. I gently pushed it back. If Madame Lin is satisfied with my craftsmanship, then in the future, please recommend me when there is work. That will be more than enough. Suddenly, I remembered something and called the maid back. That silver hairpin need not be returned. Consider it a gift from me to Second Mississippi. Edmund helped me bring the donkey cart around. Without a word, he stuffed my cart full of melon seeds, peanuts, pastries, and sweets. Today is a happy occasion. For my sake, don't refuse. His eyes were glossy. Like a puppy that had suffered an injustice, I smiled helplessly and accepted everything. The autumn harvest is over now. You're no longer busy. You should return home often and spend time with your family. I reached up and fastened his cloak more tightly around him. Your parents are reasonable people. If you grow distant from them because of me, they will only find it harder to speak openly. Edmund's thoughts were simple. He did not calculate so far ahead. After listening to me for a long moment, he finally nodded. I took hold of the reins, about to leave, when suddenly Edmund pressed down on the cart, stopping it. I had never expected that someone so refined and scholarly would possess such strength. He had drunk a little wine. His eyes were rimmed red, his pupils clear beneath long lashes, like water reflecting light. I will keep saving money, he said quietly. When summer begins next year, I will take you to see the courtyard that will be ours. For a heartbeat, I was stunned. By the time I recovered, even the tips of my ears were burning. You buy your own courtyard. What does that have to do with me? I shook his hand off and drove the cart away, almost fleeing. All along the road, I could hear nothing but Edmund's soft laughter echoing in my heart. That day, I returned home brimming with joy. Mother and I steamed a whole pot of plump, fragrant buns. When winter came, we could store them in the cellar where they would freeze solid, easy to take out and heat whenever we wished. That night, I curled up in Mother's arms. Happiness had come late and I was too excited to sleep. I told her about my plans for the future. I wanted to open a school, one specifically for women. I would teach them how to dress hair and how to read and write. These were the only two skills I truly possessed. I wanted to pass them on wholeheartedly. That way, I would not only earn money, I might also help others, if there were girls whose circumstances resembled those of Mother and me. Perhaps I could help them cross their own difficult threshold. Giving someone a fish is not as good as teaching them how to fish. The day Edmund went to look at houses, my little school opened right inside our own home. At first, only neighbors were willing to send their daughters. They had seen that I could earn money on my own. Later, when those girls followed me out to work and truly brought money home, Families from farther away began to send offerings and enroll their daughters. It was a pity that most of them only wished to learn hairdressing. Few wanted to learn to read and write. Edmund helped me keep the account books. As for me, I carried a tray of plum blossom cakes and sat in his courtyard, eating and rambling endlessly. He knew I loved flowers. Everywhere in the courtyard bloomed bright clusters of color. The house he chose had a large yard. In the first planting season, he buried countless seeds into the soil. Listening to my chatter, he said thoughtfully, "You cannot blame them. His Majesty values martial prowess over literature. That alone is one thing, but he also fears women becoming literate and meddling in court affairs." The Empress herself was once a female general, accomplished in both civil and military arts. Now she has been disciplined into meek obedience, confined within the palace walls. I stared at him, stunned. We lived in a small county, thousands of miles from the capital. Who would dare speak of His Majesty's private matters so openly? Yet we both knew his words were not wrong. The reigning Empress, Empress Meng Yang, had once removed her armor to enter the palace. From that day on, the nation lost a vanguard general. The inner court gained a dutiful empress who abided by etiquette and rules. Suddenly, everything seemed clear. "You're right," I murmured. "Learning letters has no use. It only invites trouble." I bit into a plum blossom cake and muttered foolishly, "If one day women could sit for the imperial examinations and enter court as officials, how wonderful that would be." Edmund stretched out his long arm and tapped my forehead lightly with the handle of his brush. "Miss, mind your words." I nodded quickly and stuffed another bite of cake into my mouth. Sealing it shut, I kept myself busy teaching. Whenever I had a spare moment, I would step out to help others dress their hair, or write letters home for those who could not read. Of the money I earned, I saved a portion. The rest I used to fill our stomachs or mend the house. And so the days slipped by in the blink of an eye. Mother followed me in everything and refused to sit idle. We turned over the patch of empty ground in the backyard and grew vegetables enough to feed ourselves all year round. At last, we were fully capable of supporting our own lives. Later on, Mother even pressed a small purse into my hands. She laughed, honest and simple as ever. "I hid it from you," she said. "I embroidered a few handkerchiefs and sold them. But I could never earn as much as you do." I tucked that little purse into a larger one, then slipped it into my chest. "Mother," I said softly, "if you're so idle that you enjoy embroidering such things, I won't stop you. But you must never ruin your health just to help me. Otherwise, all the effort I've put in these past years would be wasted." Mother nodded, saying she understood. She hid the larger purse inside a jar and stored it down in the cellar. She said it would be my dowry. She wanted me to be glorious and radiant when I married. She would not allow anyone to say she had sold her daughter. She wanted them to see that her daughter wore gold and silver, and even if I married, it would be marrying beneath me. She spoke with such spirit. One arm wrapped around me, the other clutching the jar of hidden savings. I could not hold back my tears. I knew that no matter how much spending money I gave her over the years, she had always been reluctant to use a single coin. She kept everything for me, Mother. Even when I one day marry and have children of my own, you will still worry for me. I wanted to remain forever a child in her embrace. Because her love had never held anything back. She had given me a life full and beautiful. After that, everything flowed as smoothly as a favorable wind. Once the autumn harvest was finished, Edmund Lin chose an auspicious day to invite friends and relatives to the new house. Master Lin and Madam Lin arrived early. The moment I stepped through the door, Edmund led me forward to greet them. I was holding the gift in my arms and had not expected so many elders of the Lin family to be present. The entire room was filled. My heart leapt in alarm, and I stole a glance at Edmund as he performed his greetings beside me. He was smiling so widely that the corners of his mouth nearly reached his ears. Madame Lin asked with a smile what gift I had brought. I replied that there was a pair of porcelain vases, and some pastries made by my mother's own hands. Mother had said she feared that third young Master Lin might drink too much today and upset his stomach, so he should eat something first to line it. Hearing my earnest words, Deputy Magistrate Lin smiled kindly and said, "In that case, it seems we have no share of it, do we?" I scratched my head, and everyone burst into laughter. That very day, Madame Lin handed down a jade pendant to me. She personally arranged the porcelain vases I had brought in the center of the hall. As I passed by, I noticed two corners of Edmund's house stacked high with red wedding chests, wrapped in dark crimson brocade. Before Edmund began entertaining the guests, Master Lin and Madame Lin instructed servants to carry those red chests to my home as a formal betrothal gift. Mother had prepared nothing. In her flustered confusion, she could only repeat again and again, "My Tuesday is far more capable than I am. She alone can support the entire household. If you marry her in such splendor, you must never bully her in the future. Do not confine her within the courtyard and force her to cook and serve." More than anyone, Mother understood how many winding paths could grind a person down. Especially now that I had learned to stand on my own. If I were to return to a life of dependence, to live at another's mercy, I could never go back to those days. She would rather not marry me off at all than see me rely entirely on others. Deputy Magistrate Lin expressed his stance at once. He said he would never allow me to repeat the mistakes of the past. After I married Edmund Lin, I could continue doing whatever I wished. The Lin family would never stand in my way. He even recounted Edmund's exact words. Nguyen Tan Tuesday is first herself, then her mother's daughter, and only lastly my wife. I could almost picture the brightness in his beautiful eyes when he spoke those words. He had never once asked me why, after marriage, I still needed to work so hard to earn my own living. Just as he had never asked what use it was for a girl to learn to write. The date of my wedding to Edmund Lin was set in the deep cold of the 12th month. Both families were impatient with joy. They could not wait any longer. They wished to welcome the new year together. Though the air was bitterly cold, our hearts were warm. On the night of our wedding, seeing that I was both chilled and exhausted, Edmund did not rush to touch me. Instead, he carefully helped me loosen my hair. This elaborate coiffure had been arranged by Mother before dawn. Now that I was married, it was my husband's turn to take it down. Gently, he said to me, "Clara Yuan, do not worry. As soon as the banquet began, I had your mother brought here. She is resting now in the eastern courtyard." In the carved bronze mirror, I saw Edmund's solemn reflection. "If you are not used to this place," he continued teasingly, "later I can take you there to sleep beside her." His words made me laugh. I stood up, turned around, and quickly wrapped my arms tightly around him. Leaning close on purpose, I smiled mischievously and whispered, "My long-legged, broad-shouldered husband. Who would have thought your waist is so slender?" In an instant, Edmund Lin's face flushed red, even the rims of his eyes tinged pink. I had never seen him so flustered before. It was as though he wanted to push me away, yet at the same time could not bear to let me go. "Clara. Are you feeling unwell?" After struggling with himself for quite some time, he finally managed to ask a single question. one that left me unsure whether to laugh or cry. I blinked at him for a long while before answering softly, I was a little tired. But after all, this is our wedding night. Whatever rites are meant to be done should still be done. He understood the hidden meaning at once. Without another word, he swept me up into his arms, turned, and carried me straight toward the bridal bed. Edmund Lynn and I were fortunate, perfectly in time. We were blessed with a son and a daughter. When they reached the age to study, His Majesty passed away. During the imperial procession, Empress Mengyang supported the fifth prince onto the throne. Drawing down the curtain to rule in his stead, she immediately proclaimed a national decree permitting women to study and sit for the imperial examinations. Naturally, Edmund and I sent both children to school. In the future, they could choose to take the examinations. If not, they could choose to become merchants. And if my daughter wished to become a hairdresser like her mother, I would agree as well. It was her choice. My duty was only to do everything in my power to widen the paths before them. With a snap of the fingers, 10 years passed. At last, my son laid down his brush and paper. He told us he wished to travel between the fields and riverbanks, to see harvests heavy with grain, just like his father. I stroked his head and handed him a handkerchief. That path may not be easier than studying and writing, I said. But if you have decided, then give it your utmost. And if one day you find you cannot continue, you may turn back and choose something else. Do you understand? My son was gentle yet steadfast, exactly like his father. He nodded obediently, and that very same day walked straight out to the fields. As for my daughter, since childhood she had loved climbing trees, stirring up trouble, brawling and arguing fiercely with the boys. Yet when it came to her books, she was serious and unyielding. She traveled 1,000 miles to sit for the examinations. By then, my father, who had discarded his wife and child for the sake of reputation and lived alone to the end, had long been buried beneath layers of earth. The clerks at the county office had carelessly thrown together a grave for him. Now the grass atop it had grown taller than a man. Mother's hair had turned gray, yet her spirit remained bright. Her hearing sharp, her sight clear, her limbs still quick and steady. On the day the results were posted, she sat in a bamboo chair, slowly fanning herself, smiling as she said, "Who would have thought our family would one day produce an official?" I laughed and teased her. "No one has come with news yet." "How do you know that girl's name will be on the golden list?" Edmund sat beside me, pouring my tea. From the time we first met in our youth until now, decades later, he remained as pure-hearted as he had been at the beginning. I often praised him before Mother. Mother would always praise me in return. It's thanks to our Tuesday's sharp eye for people. And besides, I'm not afraid of being abandoned. Even if third young Master Lin were to change his heart one day, you can leave him and still live well. And I would answer her with a steady gaze, "That's right. Even without him, I can live well. So there is nothing for me to fear." I accepted the teacup Edmund handed me, then reached up to straighten his collar. We looked at one another and smiled. In our hearts, we both understood. Without needing to speak, we knew exactly what the other was thinking. We did not seek a particular outcome. We only sought to live without shame in our own hearts. If our daughter passed the examination, that would be wonderful. If she did not, it did not matter. If she wished to reconsider, or refused to admit defeat and continued trying for several more years, that would all be fine. I raised my cup of tea in place of wine. Just as the messenger stepped through the courtyard gate, I turned to Edmund and said, "Third young master. Tell me, do you think that every step in this world has already been calculated and arranged?" The story ends. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to Love Stories with Lisa for more stories. Thank you so much.